Hello again. We're back and we're reading chapter 18 of the Ministry of Ordinary Places. We're almost finished with this book. This chapter is called Better Homes and Gardens. So sit back, relax. I would say get your coffee. I've switched to iced tea because it's warmer now. So grab your drink and get comfortable. When we open our lives to those from whom we used to keep a safe distance, it changes everything. Our well being becomes mashed up with that of our neighbors, and this shifts how we think about our homes, our time, our money, and our ideas about everything from personal responsibility to success. Loving people at close range unveils all we haven't known, the stuff we've gotten wrong for a long time or maybe forever. Uncomfortable as this can feel, it is exactly what God intended. God uses the people near us to do surgery on our hearts and turn them toward the things that capture His. There should be no segment of life left unscathed by the scalpel of the gospel. The death of self is marked with scars. For me and my family, the longer we're here in this place of intentional side-by-side living, committed to staying with grit and gusto, the more aware we are of certain gaps in our understanding. One of the most obvious examples was when we woke up to the crisis men and women face after they were released from jail. Though it's hard to imagine, re-entering is much more stressful than the incarceration itself. We lived it first with Robert. The thing you need to know about Robert is that he's charming as all get out. He's funny, witty, quick to laugh. He's smart, handsome, and yes, we are biased. Why do you ask? The point is, we weren't prepared for how hard it would be for him to find a job after prison. He had a fresh GED and $1 million smile. He had excellent references, a firm handshake, and solid eye contact. He made the rounds to places within biking distance from our house. Grocery stores, fast food joints, dishwasher position. No one called for an interview. Finally, Corey called one of the places on his list and asked what happened when someone checks the felony box in the application. It said it doesn't preclude employment, but was that true? The manager laughed. Yeah, we say it doesn't hurt your chances, but if there are other applicants, we just throw those away. Eventually, Robert settled in at a local factory. Before long, he was ready to move out on his own, opening the window for us to peer at the second hurdle facing the formerly incarcerated poor. Safe, affordable housing. When Corey started working as the chaplain, we saw it on repeat. His friends would be released, often with their self-worth only ankle high, ready to prove everyone wrong, yet terrified of freedom. They'd be overwhelmed with requirements, but wouldn't have what they needed to see them through. On top of that, after living in constant community, they often found themselves crushed by loneliness. I can't tell you how many times someone has told me they can't sleep once they're out. It's too quiet. It's too dark. Meanwhile, many of them are also fending off addiction. Maybe they were trying to break free of past relationships and realizing how impossible that will be. They ache to rebuild trust with family and their kids, but as they look out at the light of the world, what bounces back at them is the prevailing sense that we're all waiting for them to prove their unworthiness. It's not unusual for the immense and immediate pressure to kick someone back into a lifestyle of desperation. Staring straight into the center of this devastating sun, our dreams begin to shift. 7 years ago, I was dreaming about building a sleeping porch onto the north side of our farmhouse, something like the one in the movie The Man in the Moon. It wasn't enough to hear the frogs croaking from our bedroom windows at night. I wanted to be immersed in them. It wasn't enough that we had 6 bedrooms. I wanted more. Now we sit thigh to thigh with people the world tries to keep down. We fall asleep to the soundtrack of an average day events: struggle, disruption, beauty, and we want more. Despite the fact that it felt about as doable as hopping a midnight train to Jupiter, we began to hope for a little house here in our neighborhood that could be a haven for someone who needed a second chance. 3 years after the seed was sown, on my regular morning walk home from school, my eye was drawn to a house I'd never noticed. Blurring into a block of faded siding and gabled roof lines, the silk daffodil wreath on the screen door drew me to it. It spoke my language, the broken down and the lovely. In the face of winter eternal, it screamed promise. In it, I saw my friends. I saw me. I took a picture and I kept on walking. A few months later, there was a for sale sign in the yard. As it turned out, we were not meant to buy a fixer-upper in our hood. The dream was right, but the details were all wrong. Instead, the jail ministry snapped it up, and an entire village of gutsy, optimistic, tender-hearted people laced up their boots and got to work. This dream was never meant to be about us. We don't get ownership of this very good thing. Isn't that lucky? Isn't God gracious to look at our big ideas and say we're dreaming too small when we think we could do it all alone? Night after night, Corey, along with the droves of volunteers, tossed their spare time into the bucket, making a home for a family once resigned to a future of slumlords, cockroaches, and cracked window panes. I put an SOS out to my blog readers. Help us stock the kitchen. And the Amazon wish list was fulfilled in under 40 minutes. We kept adding to it in part because the eventual tenants were starting from scratch, but also because we couldn't bear to turn away generous people with a heart for their neighbor. Maybe they'd like a picnic table, maybe a grill. Who's to say they don't need a rolling pin, a microplane, a vacuum, a bird feeder, a box of tulip bulbs, a tea kettle for when their friend Shannon comes over? 2 days later, the UPS driver shot me daggers for slowing down his route. We could barely clear a path from our front door to the kitchen thanks to the towering cardboard boxes, and the gifts kept coming. A woman I first met at a PTO meeting filled the house's freezer with meat. Someone left a cute little pumpkin on the patio. An online friend crocheted our soon-to-be neighbors in Afghan. I spoke at a local church, and a woman I'd never met handed me a houseplant. "Well, a house isn't a home without one of these," she said. The unbridled enthusiasm surrounding the story God was writing for this family was living proof. We are all longing to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. Sometimes we get so hung up on doing something great, we forget the best thing is often the smallest. Aesop, the ancient Greek storyteller, wrote this eons ago. No act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. What makes these simple words even more beautiful is understanding that when we all throw our small stuff together, the pile grows in a flash. Making the world better for one person makes the world better. And we can start with whatever we've got. A friend of Corey's, a dentist in town, keeps outfitting friends of ours with brand new sets of teeth completely on the house. Poverty and drug addiction incite horrors on oral health. We're constantly sensitive to the fact that he might have reached his capacity with his pro bono work. The last time Corey raised our concerns, he smiled and said, "Well, you can't send too many. Keep them coming." One person at a time. He cleans the rubble, restoring dignity in a profoundly personal way, laying another fresh stretch of pavement, on the Jericho road for men and women as deserving of kindness and respect as the rest of us. This is so pointedly how I want to live, seeing my gifts as tools for the kingdom, not to be hoarded or used to seclude myself, but as a basic loaf of bread meant to be shared. Isaiah 58, an emotional outline of what God considers true worship, has become one of my favorite chapters in the Bible. I've particularly fallen in love with the middle section. The Lord will guide you continually, giving you water when you're dry, restoring your strength. You will be like a well-watered garden, like an ever-flowing spring. Some of you will rebuild the deserted ruins of your cities. Then you will be known as a rebuilder of walls and a restorer of homes. As we work for the glory of God and His kingdom coming nearer, He's right here too, with a thermos of ice water. The labor won't be for nothing. Woven into His plan for our redemption, what is broken will be rebuilt and masterfully restored, and we will be a part of that holy work. I cannot read those verses without choking up. God doesn't tell us through His prophet Isaiah that we're the workers tasked with planting the garden. As usual, He flips the grid. The workers don't plant the garden. The workers are the garden. We are zinnias and peonies, and with calloused hands we cling to Him, and the garden blooms. Because He is with us, tending to our wounds, being our rest and our strength, we have the endurance to rebuild broken things. You can't send too many. Keep them coming. The physical garden in my backyard is child's play compared to the garden we used to have back on the farm. 4 raised beds against a gritty backdrop of asbestos shingled garages, automobile carcasses, and weed-besieged alley. There's no shade near our garden, and it's awfully close to traffic. I never pictured myself with one foot in the street and the other in the beans, calling life from the dirt with a sweaty back. But trying to see the future is overrated here. Every spring, we suspend our disbelief and push tiny seeds into the dirt. There are always a few good tomatoes, and there are always flowers. This is the promise of creation. These are the people we're learning to love. This is us. It's a leap of faith. This is the garden we were given. We won't begrudge its smallness because a bloom is a bloom, and just one is miracle enough. Arthur Jill Briscoe, after decades of pastoring with her husband of 55 years, defined our mission field as the place between our 2 feet at any given time. She summarized the ministry strategy as this: go where you're sent. Stay where you're put. Unpack as if you're never going to leave, and give what you've got. This is our job every day. Until we're told to go, we stay. A few weekends ago, one of my bonus daughters, Gracie, age 5, prayed this before dinner. God, please turn every garden into Eden. I snapped my eyes open, stunned. I'm not sure I've ever heard a more prophetic word. Few days have passed since that night when I haven't felt their weight. We are a garden with a job to do, alive with the possibility of all that waits just outside our line of vision. We're invited to stick around for the good stuff, to rebuild lost cities through the hope of the cross. We get to do this because it's been done for us. The work is sanctifying, and we can't possibly do it alone. Stay here in this land. If you do, I will build you up and not tear you down. I will plant you and not uproot you. Jeremiah 42:10. Wherever you are, you've been planted there with a purpose. Jam your flag into that hard-packed soil and claim it, not for what it is, but for what it will soon be. That's the end of chapter 18. We have one more chapter, and then we're done with the book. I really hope you've enjoyed this book as much as I have. If so, leave some comments on our YouTube channel. You guys have a blessed day, and we'll see you again. Bye-bye.